Whether you still want a new job in 2024 or you plan to start your job search in 2025, no matter when it is, an impressive resume is mandatory. There's so much advice out there about resume writing, so rather than overwhelm you, I have broken it down into 6 golden rules of resume writing. These rules are going to help you beat the bots, impress the recruiters, and secure that next ideal job. My name is Sarah Camillo. I'm a certified career coach and a certified resume writer. I have seen thousands of resumes out there, and I've written over 600 just in the last 5 years. So I'm always on top of the resume trends. I know what works. I know what helps you stand out. I can help you get that next job. Okay, let's just jump into these 6 golden rules. And in one of these rules, I'm actually going to share some actual examples taken from a resume and show you ways on how I usually approach rewriting those bullets just to make it stronger and stronger and stronger. So stay tuned for that. And spoiler alert, it's actually in the first rule, so let's just get started. Rule number 1, tell a clear story. Each section and each bullet of your resume should have a purpose and tell a story. Numbers, data, all of that always helps to tell that story, especially to a recruiter. So I'm going to share some examples of actual resume bullets, like I said, and then ways to make them better. When I write resumes for people, I always make sure that I'm writing a resume that makes sense to a recruiter who's most likely has never been in that same job as the candidate. So every bullet has to, like I said, tell a story, be clear, be specific, and then what I try to do is one-up it or make that bullet just a little bit better. Okay, here's how I do it. Example number 1, managed the onboarding program. So when I go back to my recruiting days or put on my recruiting hat, I always I read a bullet like that and I just need more details. I need a little bit more context. Like, who are you onboarding? Are you onboarding a new client, vendors, new employees in the organization, new products? Like, a little bit more detail is needed. And then, was this program successful? Did it leave an impact? What was the point of it? What did you do with it? Let's better it. Managed the 8-week onboarding program for new hires. Great, now I know the length of the program, I know who it was for, but I still feel like, okay, now I go back to being a resume writer and I think, how can I make this bullet even better? You need a little bit more details. So now let's one-up it. Manage the onboarding program for new hires that increased employee retention by 12%. Bam. All that does is that tells the recruiter you left an impact, you improved it, you made it better, you were successful in it. And overall, this 12% retention helps the organization as a whole. That's huge. Okay, let's do 2 more examples. Example number 2, increase new business in the territory. Okay, that's great. New business is always great. That typically means new revenue. But now I'm thinking, okay, how? How did you increase this new business? Are you including that? You're including this bullet for a reason. So let's just give a little bit more detail. So you can better it like this. Increase the client base by 18% in California. That's way better. Now you could even keep it like that. Or, like I said, you can one-up it even more, adding a little bit more data or detail or just something unique about it. You're including this bullet for a reason. So you could do this. Increase the client base by 18% in California, boosting sales revenue in the West Division by $32 million. So obviously increasing new business is big. That, like I said, typically means new sales revenue. So do you have to include the $32 million? No. But the reason that you are is it shows the recruiter the scope and the size and the numbers that you're working with, how big this territory was. You can handle a territory like 32 million. So obviously I'm sharing these details. This, how I one-upped it, that was not from an actual resume, but I want to show what it means when you read online that including data and numbers and results really tells a whole story. Okay, let's move on to example number 3. Led the email marketing team for the company. Now, this one has a twist. So the recruiter is probably thinking, that's really good experience. This person knows how to manage email marketing, probably knows the strategies behind email marketing, maybe can bring a new strategy or tip to our team. But I still want to know more. The recruiter is still thinking like, okay, well, what did you do? Did you do something good? Were you successful as a leader of the email marketing team? One way to better it is led the 6-person email marketing team for the company, tracking client success in the Salesforce CRM. Okay, good. Now I know the size of the team, or the recruiter knows the size of the team, and you were using Salesforce, you were tracking the success, you weren't just winging it, you were tracking it and looking for trends and changes you could make to keep making it better. Great. And you know CRMs. So now I would want to know, okay, well, you were tracking the client's success. Can you share some numbers with me? Many recruiters, if you don't share numbers, sometimes they think, well, they probably weren't successful. They probably weren't sharing this for a reason. They're going to assume the worst. So anytime you can share some numbers and results, the better. Now, as far as numbers you can share things like client satisfaction surveys or client conversions if you were kind of tracking some like e-commerce online, something like that. If people are leaving things in their cart, are you converting those cart sales? Things like that. So, and then always know if you can't share actual financials or actual data due to privacy reasons, you can always share percentages. So if you share a percentage of something that improved, go ahead and include that percentage if you have that information. So now let's one up it. Led the 6-person email marketing team, increasing online sales by 12% within 1 year. I took out things like for the company. Anytime you can kind of condense it, obviously it was for the company, right? So anytime you can condense it, the better. You just want to tell that story, but you want to make it as short and sweet as possible. When you're sharing data and numbers and so forth in your resume, there's a huge no-no out there that I see people do a lot. So for example, they're sharing a number without any context. So example A, increased sales to 500,000. Okay, great. Now, did you increase it from 100,000 in a year? Did you increase it from 499,000? Do you see there's a big difference that tells two different stories right there? Here's another example. And I see these things like that. So I want to make sure that you understand it. So I'm giving 2 examples. End of the year with 24,000 clients. That's a good number, but I have no idea where you started. I have no idea if you started from 0. I have no idea if it decreased. That very well could have been that you were at 30,000, but you ended up at 24,000. So again, you want to show a percentage. You want to show some context. You want to show what that number really means, and again, tell a clear story. Golden rule number 2, achievements over responsibilities. So in rule number 1, I talked a lot about numbers and results. So here's another way that you can really highlight those. So especially if you have over like 5-10 years of experience, the longer your resume, the easier things can get lost in the mix. And especially because I'm sure you've heard recruiters spend about 5 seconds reviewing a resume until you entice them and get them to read more. So one way you can do it is adding a section like an accomplishments section. You can name it things like career accomplishments, career highlights, leadership impact, whatever you want to call it. Doesn't matter what you call it, just as long as you have one. In this section, you want to pull 2 to 4, at the most 5, of like key wins from your career. So things like managing new programs in the company, implementing those programs and following their success. Any kind of recognition you've received, or maybe you were selected for a President's Club if you're in sales. Any kind of like first ever situations. So maybe the company had their first ever pop-up store online, something like that, and you managed that. First ever using drones or some kind of other like innovation for the company. Maybe you led that program. That's new. You were selected for that for a reason. Anytime you are selected to do something or lead something, you want to highlight that in your resume as well as in the interviews. One other example could be maybe you have you implemented a software that now automates and generates real-time reporting for the company. Data and reporting is really big these days. So anytime you can do that for the company to allow them to track their own trends, competitor trends, anything like that, that is a really big impact. Now with these like first ever accomplishments, like say you led a company to expand their brand into a brand new state. That's huge. That's a big accomplishment right there. Well, you're not going to have these numbers and data and results right away, but the fact that you say this is the first time ever that we built our brand into Arizona, that's a really big accomplishment too. Now, if you create a section like this, it's okay to omit like the summary of your resume if you want. You don't want too much on the top. So if you decide, you know what, if you have a lot of years of experience, a lot of things you want to highlight in this accomplishment section, go ahead and pick out 3 to 5 of those, and then you no longer need the summary. Golden rule number 3, flaunt your credentials. So I've recently been asked about like how to include certifications or education like degrees that you're currently enrolled in and currently taking. Can you put that on your resume? Absolutely. Include every certification that you have, licenses that you have, degrees that you have, and then any of those that are still in progress, go ahead and just put it in parentheses, still in progress. anticipated graduation date is this, anticipated completion date this. Go ahead and include that. It just shows that professional development is really important for you. So go ahead and include that on your resume. Along with those credentials, flaunt any other professional recognition you've received, even if that is like a peer recognition or a quarterly recognition. Anytime you're selected for something, nominated for something, anything like that, you want to include that in your resume. You should be really proud of that. Golden rule number 4, the power of the resume title and keywords. I feel like this is something not a lot of people talk about, but the more you get to know me, the more I'm going to talk about the resume title, because I remember from my recruiting days that I'd be reading resume after resume after resume, and like, if you don't have a title up there, I don't always know exactly what you want to do. Like, you may have applied to this job at our company, but maybe I want to consider you for something else. I want some other keywords in there. I want a resume title that tells me what you're looking to do next. Now, this title at the top, it shouldn't just be your recent or current job title. That isn't telling me anything. It should be what you're looking to do next. So you want to align it with the job that you're applying for. Put some of those keywords or phrases right underneath. I'm sure you've seen that before. It tells me what you're looking to do next. It shows when you are aligning it with the open job, it just shows you're being proactive too. Tailoring this section to the open job is extremely beneficial before applying online. One other benefit of a job title is, like I mentioned before, recruiters spend about 5 or 6 seconds reviewing your resume. But when I would find a resume that clearly aligned with the job I'm recruiting for, I instantly got more excited. I read it a little bit more closely. I read a little bit more word for word. So that's what you want to do. And that's the power of a resume title. Lastly, when it comes to keywords, I hear a lot of people confused about a bot kicking out your resume if you don't have the right keywords. That does not happen. Now, you want as many keywords in your resume as possible because AI will help get your resume more to the top. It kind of sorts according by keywords in some situations, but it's not going to kick you out. So if you have any questions about bots, and there's so much wrong information and so many people who misunderstand what that means, so put it in the comments below if you have any questions about that. Golden rule number 5, clean professional format. The rule used to be your resume needs to be 1 page. Now, there are some recruiters who still want you to have 1 page, but they're not going to kick you out if it's over 1 page. So the norm today is 2 pages. So don't hesitate. Don't keep out like professional accomplishments just because it goes into page 2. Go ahead, make it page 2, especially if you have over 10 years or even like 7 or 8 years of work experience. It's going to go into 2nd page. That's absolutely fine. Some other details about the format is it's okay to use a little bit of light shading. I always use some color in there just to help it stand out and pop a little bit more. When a recruiter's reading black and white, papers all day or online or whatever, a little bit of shading is absolutely fine. It doesn't have to be wild and crazy. Just a little bit of shading is fine, just if you want little sections to pop. Make sure you're using a easy to read font, and make sure there's ample white space. Again, if you want to condense some words, cut out little words here and there just to add some white space, it makes it easier to read for the recruiter. And finally, it's absolutely critical that your format is ATS friendly or ATS compliant, especially in the US. In the US, we don't want 2 columns. We don't want text boxes. We don't want the little envelope icon next to your email, the little telephone next to your phone number. Headshots either, no images at all, no graphs. Keep all of that off because it messes with the parsing that occurs when you apply online. So the simpler, the better. Golden rule number 6, proofread before you send it in. So get another set of eyes on it. Proofread it. You can use applications like Grammarly.com. It's free, and it'll just make sure that you're using the right grammar, punctuation, tenses, spelling, of course, all of that, just to make sure it makes sense. The last thing you want is for a picky recruiter to knock you out of the running because of an incorrect tense or incorrect grammar. That's the last thing that you want. So use a site like that. Ask a friend to read it. Make sure it makes sense to somebody outside of your job as well, or a mentor or a career coach or a resume writer. Somebody else's eyes on it is going to really help. Now remember, when you share it with somebody else, everybody's going to have their 2 cents. Everybody's going to have a suggestion on your resume and changes you should make. You don't have to take every suggestion. Keep that in mind. Just make sure that you're representing yourself and your accomplishments as best as possible. Okay, that is it. That is the 6 golden rules of resume writing. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. If this was helpful, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Let me know if there's any other topics you want me to hit on going forward. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.